Sup? Hello. Sorry about the overexposure. That's fine. No one cares. Do you care? You've all watched the previous Kyoto video, have you? If not, you can go watch that first and then come back. Yeah, that's how YouTube works. If you just finished watching that one, then you probably want me to shut up and get back to Kyoto. So, We left off having just spent some lovely time in the magnificent mountains above Kyoto, stumbling our way through Japanese cultural sites and enjoying the local vending machines. At this point though, we were a bit sick and tired of all this nature and all these fucking mountains. So we went back down into the city again, or into the outskirts at least. I have no idea what this river is called, but I named it Felix after Henry VIII. Down by the river we had what can only be described as mush with mush inside. The steamed bread thing with mush inside. I think it's called nikuman, but since this one had no meat in it, I guess it's just man. Just a man. We sat down by the river munching on a dude, savouring his juices, you know. At this point though, we were a bit sick and tired of all this city and all these outskirts, you know, and we longed to get back up into the mountains. We had also heard of a monkey temple somewhere above Kyoto. A temple, ladies and gentlemen, with monkeys. Wild ones, just roaming free. No enclosures except for one from which humans could offer their nuts. Of course this perked more than just our nipples, and off we went. Way up into the mountains again. The road there was not very well maintained, and it did feel like we were sort of going into kind of wilder territory, yes. Halfway up the mountain was a sign warning travelers of what massive assholes the monkeys could be. You weren't allowed to look them in the eye unless you wanted your nether regions fondled, I don't know. And then we reached the top after about a 40-minute walk, and fuck me, there they were. Jesus, not just a few of them either, but a shit ton of them. Just roaming free, doing all sorts of monkey things, I guess. Climbing and being naughty and just walking about. Felt a bit like some of them were posing as well. I mean, this shot of Herman here, with the incredible view of Kyoto in the background, can't be a coincidence. This fucker clearly knows what he's doing, you know. I love this place. It was so cool. It felt like the monkeys here just hung around here because it was a nice place for them to be. They got regular meals, for instance, which we'll see in a bit. And they were free to fuck off at any point. No enclosures, as I said. Animal well-being is not usually a priority, let's put it that way, in Japan. So this was really nice to see. I very much enjoyed this place. Alright, now obviously into the cage I went. For 200 yen, I think it was, you could get a little bag of either nuts or fruits to give to the monkeys through the iron bars. My sexual fantasy of one day being dominated by members of a different species finally came true. And it was lovely, let me tell you. Look at me, fucking David Attenborough over there. Not literally, sadly. But this was not the feeding time of the monkeys. We were only allowed to give them tiny snacks. The real food spectacle took place outside the cage. We were told to gather around in a little circle in the sort of main bit outside the temple. The atmosphere was kind of tense. I half expected there to be like a ritual sacrifice of the youngest virgin in the audience or something, but luckily instead this happened.
Wow, han hade en liten dans. Hej!
Who the rubbery fuck chose this music? If you've seen the video about my first impressions of living in Japan, I mentioned that the jingles in this country, like the Twinkle Twinkle Little Star outside my window, and yeah, I'm still very confused by it. After this, it was our feeding time, I guess. We had a lovely dinner down in Kyoto. It was really lovely. I got very drunk, but I didn't film it because I'm a Warui YouTuber. Day 3. This night we stayed at a normal hotel in Kyoto, and the difference in breakfast the next morning was startling compared to the ryokan. I really like hotel breakfast though, and I mean, there was a huge fucking paper cat in the dining room area as well, so yet another lovely meal during this 3-day trip, yes. We started the last day of our journey with a trip to the Golden Temple in Western Kyoto, or Kinkakuji. This is one of 17 historic monuments of ancient Kyoto, making it part of a World Heritage Site, but the reason I wanted to go there was because this temple and the corresponding silver temple, Ginkakuji, on the other side of the city, were the inspiration for Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver. So cool. And the golden and silver birds on top of the temples apparently inspired the designs of both Ho-Oh and Lugia as well. So fucking cool. Okay, that's not very interesting at all unless you are a Pokemon fan, which I very much am. So I loved going here. This temple even burned down in 1950 before it was restored into what you can see now, which if you've played the games, you know that in the same city as the temple and the Ho-Ho-Ho temple, there was a burned down temple. Just the references. Okay, I'm sorry, enough of this nerdiness. I'm terribly sorry. This sexual charisma I'm exuding right now might just get someone pregnant, so let's move on. After the temple, we had a quick sort of run through the central bits of Kyoto, the hustle bustle of the city life there, before moving on to the old quarters of the city. This is, I suppose, the most famous area with these amazing wooden houses, narrow streets, cute little boutiques, and a fucking sea of tourists. A hint, by the way, to those fans of the coronavirus out there. Apparently, this area in particular, and many others around Kyoto, have seen a significant drop in tourism after the corona outbreak. Prices have gone down, and this is apparently a really good time to visit these areas, which are usually, as when I was there just before the outbreak, you can see it was packed with people. But apparently now the prices are lower and there are much less people. So yay, go there now, yay. Even with all the tourists, it was extremely beautiful. I am so glad I got to go here. It's Jesus. It was one of these feelings when you really feel that you're in Japan. If you're in Tokyo, and as I do, I usually hang out with my international friends here, usually speaking English. You can get a sense of like, yeah, you're just living in a big city doing cool stuff. But in this area, I could really feel that I was nowhere else in the world, definitely, than in fucking Japan. I was again surprised by just how many people actually walked around in a kimono, but it's definitely different from wearing like this in Sweden, which I guess would be the equivalent. I mean, if anyone showed up dressed like this in Sweden, you'd think that they were some super nationalist with very questionable subreddit subscriptions, But here, kimonos were very common. And it definitely was a touristy thing as well, because it was not just locals who wore kimono. Westerners or any tourists were all, encouraged to wear one as well. Not everything in this neighborhood was hyper traditional though. In this image, for instance, there is a Starbucks. Yay, believe it or not. See? And it's the coolest fucking Starbucks I've been to. Doesn't say much, I grant it, but still. Instead of the normal Starbucksy interior, this one fitted into the surrounding perfectly. This shop is like the perfect example of Japan's incredibly interesting way of mixing traditional culture with whatever the fuck modern that happens to be popular, Here we were, two people from Sweden, having a fika on traditional Japanese tatami mats in an American brand cafe. Nationalists from all over the place would be terribly upset about this, and I loved it. Somehow it worked perfectly. So that was kind of it for our trip to Kyoto. After this, evening fell rather quickly again, and we took a last look at the incredible pagodas. The very last thing we did before taking the Shinkansen back to Tokyo was eat okonomiyaki, which is kind of difficult to describe. You get a bunch of ingredients and you shove them up your ass, and then you dump them onto the hot cooking surface on the table and you cook it yourself. It ends up kind of like an omelette thing. Mine doesn't look like much perhaps, but I mean, neither do I. And we're both delicious, yes, and easy to cook. This was a great way to round the trip off, since there are apparently different versions of okonomiyaki in different regions of Japan. I'm not quite sure how well representative the one I had was of the okonomiyaki from Kyoto specifically, but I've since also had okonomiyaki here in Tokyo, and it was kind of the same thing. Maybe it's because I always take the vegetarian option, I don't know. But now I can at least say that I've had okonomiyaki in Kyoto. So yay, this was a lovely trip. We spent so much fucking money though, but it was really fun. So yeah, as I said, if you want to go to Kyoto, 10 out of 10. Please do. Now, in the last video, I said that this one would probably be up about a week after the last one. Those perceptive of you will notice that that didn't happen. Recently, some personal shit has gone down, so I didn't feel very creative for a couple of weeks. Now, I really want to focus on videos again. Thank you to all of you who have subscribed the last couple of weeks. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a good week. Stay healthy, everyone, I guess, and I'll see you in the next video.